Welcome back. You're watching Late Night Live and it's time now for our special guest interview. Tonight I'm joined by the Director of Programming and Content at Manchester Business Radio, John Evington. He's here with me on the couch. John, you're very welcome.
And it's nice to be here, Fiona.
Thanks so much for coming in to us this evening.
Pleasure.
So tell us all, so I know you're very busy at the moment. Obviously you're basically in the middle of a launch. You've just launched Manchester Business Radio 1 week ago, I believe, is it?
We launched last Monday, we're a week in.
So that's all gone, and it's all gone really well for you.
It's gone remarkably well, yeah.
It's gone too
well, we're still here.
It kind of happens like that, doesn't it? Like that was a bit too easy.
Goodness, it's been a busy period.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We've had 12 weeks to prepare for the launch.
Right, okay, that's not that long.
That's from the date of being awarded the licence.
Wow, okay.
And it's a 24-hour-a-day speech station, so no pressure.
Wow.
I mean, I'm only 26 and look at me. It's not good.
Oh, you look fantastic. All right, tell us a bit about your background then, because you've started in radio and you've specifically started in radio in Manchester, haven't you?
Yeah, well, it goes back to my school days, really. I always had a fascination in radio. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people of a certain age will remember the old Radio Luxembourg, listening under the bedclothes days and the pirate stations. I wasn't quite old enough for the pirate stations, but certainly Radio Luxembourg. And I got it into my head that I wanted to work in radio as a presenter. But of course everyone I mentioned that to would laugh at me and totally dismiss it as being a fanciful ambition. Why?
Because it would have been seen as a fanciful thing at the time?
Completely, yeah. Well, because back then, I mean, this makes me sound ancient, but there wasn't a lot of radio.
Sure.
We got Radio 1, Luxembourg of course, but there was no commercial radio as such. So there weren't many opportunities at all. And I mentioned it to my careers teacher at school and he laughed at me. And that actually, probably looking back, gave me the determination to show them.
Well, that's good.
Anyway, I did dismiss it, put it to the back of my mind, went to university to do a degree in something totally unrelated to radio, economics.
As people do though, don't you find that with lots of people in media or creative, whatever they decide to go into, a lot of the time you'll go back and they'll have, you know, a business, whatever, you know, it'll be something completely different. Yeah,
well, I hated it. Hated my studies, and I eventually got kicked out of university for something I didn't do, which was very unfair.
For something you didn't do? Oh,
yeah, my coursework. Which
his work.
I haven't lost it.
The producer saying for something his work lessons.
So I then set about finding a job, and by this time there was commercial radio. Piccadilly Radio had just launched in Manchester. Piccadilly being the forerunner of what is now Key 103.
Oh, okay.
And it used to be Magic, and before that it was Piccadilly. I think it's Key 1, 2 and 3 now. Key 103, 2 and 3 now. But essentially it's the same organisation, but this is like 37 years ago. And I went in to see the programme director, who was very standoffish and very aloof, but that very same day he gave me a call and said, look, we're a bit stuck for the overnight show, how are you fixed? And that night I was on the air. Oh my goodness, so you essentially walked in off the street? Walked in off the street, I could have been anyone. November the 24th, 1978, my first show. Goodness. And all my friends and family were over the moon because I was on the radio. At last they could switch me off. They're all
But what kind of format did you walk into then? Was it, I mean, you'd no training, had you? You haven't done anything?
No, but in fairness, I'd done a bit of illegal radio from my university.
Right.
It was quite true. I didn't do my coursework, didn't do my studies. I was involved with a radio station from my room that went out to the students, and it was great fun. So I used tapes from that to get my route into Piccadilly. Okay. But yeah, very different from the way it is now. We used to play these things that they were plastic and had like grooves in them. And you put a needle on it and actually played music. It was magical. They were called records.
Well, they kind of made a comeback, haven't they?
Yeah, there was no format as such. We were just told, there's a box of records, there's the studio, get on with it. With one caveat, there was a thing called needle time. Have you heard of needle time?
No.
It was all to do with royalty payments. And stations then, and it's currently still the same now, they have to pay royalties to the PRS, Performing Rights Society, and Photographic Performance Limited, who represent the record labels.
Sure.
And it was a lot of money. And there was a concern amongst the record labels back then that commercial radio would kill music because people would consume their music via the radio as opposed to buying records. So they used to put a limit on the amount of music stations could play. So at Piccadilly back then we had 9 hours of needle time out of every 24 hours.
9 just,
And
wow.
guess where they used that up? In the daytime, when they had listeners. So on overnights, we used to have to play tracks that weren't licensed by PPL, and it wasn't particular. It was like test card music. We used to do live sessions, and we even had musicians coming in to play the piano and sing live in the middle of the night. Some of whom you may know. Howard Jones used to come in.
Oh my goodness.
Paul Rafferty, who went on to bigger and better things years later.
So you really had to use your initiative, though, didn't you, to kind of expand that time?
Yeah, oh, it was a challenge, and there were long shows as well. We used to do an 8-hour overnight show.
8 hours?
Yeah. So, but happy days.
So that's where you began. So what kind of, you know, what's got you from there to here, then today with Manchester Business Radio?
I thought we'd only got half an hour. I'll fast track through the career.
So I just want your whole CV.
Yeah, it'd be a long one. I mean, Piccadilly back then was a great station. It was massive. Everybody listened to Piccadilly Radio, and in the daytime slots they had these gladiator DJs like Roger Day, Andy Peebles, Gary Davis was after my time, but you know, big name presenters, and. For me, you know, a young, ambitious 19-year-old rookie presenter, there was nowhere to go really though, because these people were going to be there forever, in my mind. So I had to look elsewhere, and commercial radio was developing and growing, and I managed to get myself a position at a news station down in Leicestershire as breakfast. Well, actually, I didn't start as breakfast presenter. I was the features producer and sort of stand-in presenter when it started. But the breakfast presenter at launch was a chap called Timmy Mallet.
Oh.
And he went on air on this new radio station in Leicester as Timmy Mallet. Zany, wacky, yeah. It was really over the top. And as a consequence, within 7 weeks, he got the old Spanish Archer elbow, and he was gone. And I got the breakfast show, and I stayed there for 2 years. Not a happy station, to be honest.
So you took over from Timmy Mallet?
Took over from Timmy, yeah. And spent 2 years there, but it's funny. You from the sharp end, you see things happening, and you just get a vibe about the place. And I just thought this station isn't going to be around for long. All the telltale signs were there. No commercials, gloomy faces in the management offices. So when the opportunity came along, I moved from there to Signal Radio in Stoke-on-Trent, another news station. And I mean, you were here for the launch of That's TV, and it's a great experience, isn't it? And it's a start-up. Yeah,
we were talking about that earlier. Yeah. Like, there's something really, really nice to be involved. I think
brings everyone together, doesn't it? There's a real camaraderie.
You have kind of a personal incentive in it as well, don't you? I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And Signal was like that. It was a family feel to the place, and well, back then I'd done 3 years at Piccadilly in Manchester. I'd done 2 years in Leicester, and when I joined Signal in 1983, in my head at the time I was thinking, you know, maybe I'll do 2, 3, 4 years here, then move on to the next opportunity. 22 years later, I was still there.
Wow.
But I mean, it wasn't, you know, you meet people who say, oh, I've been in this job for 50 years, and they've literally done the same thing every day for 50 years. Now at Signal, every day was different. There were new challenges, and I went from being a presenter to I did leave briefly to go to Radio 2 and do some shows there, but I came back, became programme controller, programme director, joined the board, oversaw the AM-FM split, where we took the radio station and put it on FM and did something different on AM. And we did lots of other really interesting and quite different things along the way.
That's some stint there as well.
It was a long stint, and we were taken over twice in that time. And whenever a company's taken over, you kind of expect the worst, don't you?
Of course you do.
Particularly when the new boss is Kelvin Mackenzie, the former editor of The Sun.
Okay.
But I managed to survive that, and I even, towards the end of my time with the group that owned Signal at the end, I was Kelvin Mackenzie's group programme director. We had 17 or 18 stations up and down the UK, along with TalkSport and a couple of digital operations, and I was reporting into Kelvin as his group PD, which was interesting. Never a dull moment.
No, I would say so. What kind of just with that amount of time you had behind you working in radio, you must have seen some amount of changes over the years then, just in radio itself.
Yeah, well, the whole thing's changed. I mean, we talked about the technical side of things earlier, where I used to go in and have to switch on the studio and wait for all the valves to warm up.
Yeah.
No. But we had records, and then we moved from records to CDs, and everyone said CDs is the format of the future. And now, of course, everything's on hard disk. And yeah, the whole technical process is just light years away from the way it was when I started.
But you've stayed on top of it, obviously. I mean, considering you didn't have a technical education in it, or I mean, not that it would have made a difference, I suppose, if you had have had it then anyway.
I've always had a fascination with technology.
Right. Well, that's
I like to keep in touch with all the new trends, like we were talking earlier about things like Periscope and Meerkat and YouTube. Obviously, lots of new formats.
You're ahead of me on that, and I haven't got my head around Periscope.
Periscope? No, couldn't I? But, I'll resist the temptation. But no, that's the technical side. But on the on-air side and the role of the presenter, that's all changed as well. And we now have formatted radio stations. Back then, there was just the radio station, and it catered for everybody from little children to grandparents to everything in between. And it was broad-based radio that played. I mean, at Signal in the early days, we had a classical music program, we had a country music program, and all sorts of talk bits in between the hit music that we played in daytime. But now, if you take Manchester as a marketplace, what a fantastic, sophisticated radio market we've got. You've got the likes of Key 103, which is the heritage commercial station, and it's now augmented by things like Capital, great brand that's now national, Smooth, Heart, Real Radio XS, Radio X, which has recently launched with my old mate Chris Moyles on Breakfast. Talk about him later. So yeah, there's all this choice now for people, and we tend to follow America in so many ways, but we have with radio, and it's now they call it the hot tap philosophy. You know, you turn a tap on that's marked hot. You want hot water, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night. It's always hot water coming out of the tap. So with a station like Capital, it's always that flavour of radio whenever you tune in, and it's a vibrant, dynamic station. And being a national brand, as it is now, you can drive up and down the country and hear Capital wherever you go, and the same with Heart and Smooth and the others. Well,
sorry to jump in here, but we're going to talk lots more about this and mostly about Manchester Business Radio when we come back. We have to go for a break now. Don't go away. John's going to stay with us, and he's going to tell us lots more about his latest project in Manchester. See you in a minute.